Good morning, History 131 students. I hope everything is well with you. We are going to talk about chapter 2 today. It's a very long chapter, so we're going to have to do it in increments. But before we get started on the lecture, we'd like to make something clear to you. This course is designed to be as simple as possible. There are no assignments except one. The assignment that you're responsible for is writing a 5-page research paper. The only thing you have to submit to me right now is the name of your topic. The research paper is due at the end of the semester, but we want to get a head start on it. But there are no more assignments. I don't give homework, I give tests. You will have 4 tests after every 3 chapters and submit your research paper at the end of the semester. That's all you have to do. I will upload today this lecture, the PowerPoint slides, and by the end of the week, I will add the second lecture for chapter 2. So today, we're going to talk about Mesopotamia. Now, to rehash, we started out talking about the earth and the many climatic changes that it has gone through up until the present. We talked about the Paleolithic age, the Old Stone Age, from about 2.5 million years to about, I think it ends about 10,000 BCE. We also talked about before the Common Era, BCE, and AD, Anno Dominicus, the year of the Lord, and the new calendar that came about because of Venerable Bede, date and time from the birth of Christ forward. So AD ascends, BCE descends. So we want to get this time now. But anyway, during the Paleolithic age, hominids, Homo erectus, and Homo sapien. This is a part of the development of the human species. They originates in Africa and migrates to the rest of the world. But the earth is thrown into an ice age. So you can imagine the condition that these people was living in, mostly living in caves, and this is where they left their drawings and other artifacts to let us know that they existed. The last group to leave Africa would be the Homo sapien, wise human being. But before them, there was another group called the Neanderthal. They left about 50,000 years before the Homo sapien. But eventually the Neanderthals were wiped out and they no longer exist. So, but something happened about 10,000 BC that changed the way man lived on this earth. And that was the agricultural revolution. Between the period between 10,000 to 7,000 BCE, the revolution occurred where man stopped chasing behind herds of animals, sleeping in caves, living outside, moving about, and put down roots. This is the beginning of what we call civilization. And the first civilization that we're going to talk about is Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is today the modern state of Iraq. Now that should come to mind because we have been involved in warfare in Iraq since 2003. Now the the environment in Iraq, harsh, mainly desert, blowing winds, a lot of sand, no trees, but in the middle of the country flows 2 rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. These rivers originate in northern Iraq, in Turkey, and flow south to the Persian Gulf. In between these rivers is where civilization took hold. And Besides, what you want to know about Mesopotamia, it means land between the rivers. And what are the rivers? The Tigris and the Euphrates River. Uh, the rivers were important because it provided means to live. Remember what we was talking about, this agricultural revolution. Now, probably it was invented by a woman. She put a seed in the ground, nourished it, watered it, and it grew. This led to the growing of grain crops, wheat, barley, in the Americas, corn, in Asia, rice, but grain crops. And it also began the domestication of animals, sheep, goats, dogs, horses, cattle, pigs, chickens. So now, instead of having to move about and chase behind wild herds of animals, a group could grow and raise their own food supply. So if they needed meat, they could kill a goat, a sheep, a cattle, a pig. If they needed grain, they had grown wheat, barley, rye, oats, etc. So now, with this civilization coming together, people could stay in one place and survive. And the first civilization we're going to talk about would be the Sumerians. There are three groups of Mesopotamians: the Sumerians, the Akkadians, and the Babylonians. When these are the Mesopotamians, these are the people that live between the rivers, between the Tigris and the Euphrates River. The Mesopotamian and the Sumerians are noted for giving us a form of writing called wedge shape or cuneiform writing. Remember what I just told you about the conditions there in Mesopotamia. There are no trees. As you know, paper is made from trees, so that there was no paper to write on. So they came up with molding mud tablets and writing. Now, how did this writing take place? It's just like us today with our ABCs. It's done phonetic. You assign a sound to an alphabet. Now, I don't have a copy of the Sumerian alphabet, but they were able to record their activities and to document their existence there between the rivers. Also, they developed a government to rule. Normally, it would be a king or queen, but also a religion takes hold. Keep this in memory here. Since man has been on this earth, man has had the need to believe in a powerful supreme being. So if one didn't exist, man would create one. So in the middle of this Sumerian village, which was surrounded by walls, you had to build walls to protect yourself from invaders or from outsiders, built from mud bricks. The Mesopotamian invented the concept of bricks, making bricks and using them to build walls. So no trees, no wood, but mud bricks. And one in the middle of the town, the walled town, would be a temple called the ziggurat. Now, all of this is going to be on your study guide, and I won't bore you with the details, but this is where all of the religious issues were decided. If the Tigris and Euphrates flooded one year, then the priests say the gods are unhappy, and so you had to do something to placate the god. It might mean sacrificing animals, could be a human sacrifice, but we see the development of a belief system and the concept of creation of the universe arises there. We're going to talk later about the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Great Flood. In our lexicon, we call it Noah's Ark or the Great Flood during the Old Testament. But there in Mesopotamia, writing was invented by the Sumerians. The Sumerians also expanded their empire. but about 500 years in existence, they were conquered by a new group called the Akkadians. They were Semites. Now, keep in mind, who are the Semites? Normally, we refer to Semites as Jews and Arabs. Uh, the Akkadians, as well as the Sumerians and later the Babylonians, would be considered Semitic. Uh, so the Akkadians was led by a king named Sargon. This is your first personality, Sargon. He's known as the world's first conqueror. He conquered the Sumerians. Once he conquered them, he did not destroy the culture they had built. He continued to and adjusted the Akkadian culture to match the Sumerian culture, so it increased. The Akkadians would be later conquered by the Babylonians, and they would be led by a man named King Hammurabi. King Hammurabi, as far as we know, issued the first law code. It is a brutal code that calls for an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. In Western society, we call it the Mosaic Code because Moses in the Old Testament had a similar code. You knock my eye out, I put your eye out. You kill my brother, I kill your brother. Revenge. So this is the Hammurabi Code. But the Hammurabi Code dealt with more than criminal activity. It dealt with the whole way of life for the Mesopotamians. And so let's see, can we get to that? Hold on. The Code of Hammurabi. It's 182 law codes published in a clay tablet. It reveals a society with a system of strict justice I just described to you, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. For crimes against members, you had to pay. But it varies between the social class that existed in Babylon or in Mesopotamia at that time. Was fundamental in this system of justice. It was applied to cases where members of the upper class committed crimes against their social equal, but for crimes against members of the lower class, you could pay your way for the crime. Builders were held responsible for a building they constructed. If a house collapsed and caused the death of owner, the builder was put to death. But the most of these laws were dedicated to land tenure and human behavior. And it dealt with marriage and the family. As you know, during this particular time, love did not have anything to do with marriage. Marriage was based upon the arrangement of the family, and it was done for social advancement. And under the Mesopotamian, which would be handed off to the Hebrews later, the marriage would not be official until the contract was signed. So we get this concept of marriage. It is a legal contract. Think about it. You can go to the church or the courthouse and get married, but you can't go back to the church to dissolve the contract. You have to go to court. So marriage is a legal contract handed down to the Western world by the Mesopotamian and the Hebrews. But it had all kinds of other restrictions that was noted during the law code, the issue of the law code. But keep in mind, we're living in a patriarchal society where man is in control of everything. He can decide whether his children live or die to be sold into slavery, or he could have his wife beheaded. All powers lie was in the hands of men. Women possess few privilege and the right in the marriage relationship than men. It was considered a woman's place was in the home, and failure to fulfill her expected duties was ground for divorce. If she was not able to bear children, her husband could divorce her, but he did not have to return the dowry to her family. If a wife tried to leave home to engage in business, thus neglecting her house, her husband could divorce her and did not have to repay the dowry. A wife who was a gadfly, that means she slept around, neglecting her house and humiliating her husband, could be drowned, thrown in the river, and drowned by her husband. Women could seek divorce, but it was left up to the husband to decide. As far as sexual relationships were concerned, they were strictly regulated as well. Husbands, but not wives, were permitted sexual activity outside the marriage. The husband could go down to and pay a visit to the house of prostitution, but a woman could not. If she slept around, she could be burned at the stake or tossed into the river. If a man slept around, it was just like a notch on his belt, and he was lauded for being a manly man. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? If a wife was caught committing adultery, she was pitched into the river, although her husband could save her, but many did not. Incest was strictly forbidden. You know what incest is. Between relative, mother, son, father, daughter, uncle, niece. But fathers ruled their children as well as their wives. Obedience was duly expected, and this is the way it is in the ancient world. It's a patriarchal world. Man is in charge, and women are considered to be property or possession of man. She did not own her own body or her own mind. When she was a child, the father controlled her. When she get married, the husband controls her. This is revealed in the Hammurabi Code. Good research topic if you're looking for a topic to write on. Now, what else should I tell you? As far as religion is concerned, the religion originated from the physical environment that they lived in, particularly the occurrence with the rivers of the Tigris and Euphrates River. But their religions were polytheistic. That means the belief in more than one God. They had many gods. Unlike most people of the world today, we are monotheistic, the belief in one God. But if you're polytheist, you have many gods, and the Mesopotamians had many gods. But they believed that human being relationship with the gods were based on subservient, and that man was placed here on earth to serve the gods. We've already talked about the art form and everything, particularly the clay tablets. But the Mesopotamian influenced first the Hebrews, then the Christian, and now the Western culture that we live in. One thing I would like to point out to you would be the Epic of Gilgamesh, and this is the story of the Great Flood. Now remember what I was telling you about the Ice Age ending? That means all of the polar caps melted, and this gave rise to the sea level. If you look at the map of the Caspian and the Black Sea, this is where the Semites lived. And true enough, the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea goes from freshwater lakes into saltwater lakes. So the sea level goes through the Straits of Bosphorus and flood all of that area of the country. The whole world was never covered in water. But this particular area did experience the flood, and this is what Noah writes about, talks about in Moses. I think it's in Genesis where he talks about the Great Flood. But Moses and Noah had experience with the Mesopotamian. In fact, the patriarch of the Jews and Christian and Muslim were Abraham. He was born in Mesopotamia and migrated to Canaan, which began the Jewish story, which we're going to talk about later this week. I'm going to end this discussion right now. On Wednesday, I will post a video on the Egyptian and the Israelites. Be blessed. And again, there are no assignments. Your only assignment is to send me your topic. Tell me what you're going to write on, and you can begin your research. There will be no assignment. I will go to Blackboard. More than likely, this is a checklist that they have up that you need to complete. That's why you'll get a notification about assignment. As you can see, you click on the link. There's nothing out there that I've placed assigning you a task. So if it continues to hit you, notify you that you have an assignment, simply ignore it, because or go and make sure you did the checklist that you needed to get permission to use Blackboard. Be blessed and stay safe. See you in a couple days. Bye.